Hey, welcome to the Mario Dattilo Show. I'm your host, Mario Dattilo. I've been investing in mobile home parks and other commercial real estate for years. And on this show, we interview some really interesting and successful real estate investors and business owners. We go behind the scenes on how they do what they do. I know you're going to get a ton of value out of this, so stick around till the end. Hey guys, I'm super excited because today we've got a guest on our show that many of you already know. Dave Seymour, who was actually a TV personality on Flipping Boston on A&E, agreed to come on the show today, and we're going to talk about some awesome real estate discussions. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about life. So, hey, Dave, thank you so much for getting on here, and I know you got some good nuggets for these guys and for me, so I got my pen ready.
Oh, I got to tell you, Mario, first of all, thank you for having me. And secondly, I got a bag full of nuggets. I got so many nuggets, right? Mistakes are the best nuggets. We'll even talk about those. So I'm not perfect, but hey, thanks for having me on the show. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Definitely the mistakes are where the money is made. You learn from that stuff the most. So, hey, Dave, let's talk a little bit. You're based in Boston. Yep. You were obviously on Flipping Boston, a very popular TV show that many of us have seen. And also you're investing in real estate. I mean, that's kind of your main business, right? Is real estate syndication and investing. And there was something that stood out to me. You're up in Boston. Most of your portfolio, most of what you're investing in is actually down by me in Florida. Yeah. So maybe give everybody some insight on kind of how you got into real estate investing and what you're actually doing within your company that allows you to be up in Boston when all your assets or most of them are in Florida.
Yeah, great question. Look, man, the number one rule of real estate, right, is don't lose the money. Number two rule is check out rule number one. And this, look, we're both right, sophisticated, educated, successful commercial real estate investors, but the fundamentals of real estate don't change. Whether it's wholesaling a single family house contractually and making $5,000, which was my first deal, or whether it's, I'm in underwriting right now on a $24 million ground up construction deal in Cape Coral. But it's the same story all the way through. It's fundamentals. So, finding the money, deploying the capital, putting it in as, a risk adverse environment is the number one strategy for all of us. But, it didn't all start there. I'll make it a short story long, not a long story short. I'm an immigrant to the States. Shh, don't tell anyone. It's a secret. I'm actually from London. I immigrated in
I hear an accent there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's messed up, Mario. You've got the Boston mixed up with a little bit of London, and you put that in a pot and swill it around. I don't know what the hell you call it. I'm kind of like a mutt. But
the question is, how do you pronounce car? That is the only thing that I care about. Can you park the car?
Yeah, in Boston it's a car.
Yeah.
Back home in London it's a motor. So it's not even a car. It's your motor. You know what I mean? Driving a new motor. Hello, John got a new motor. But you got me on a roll already, man.
That's right.
Started. Look, I'm 18 years old. I'm dating a girl from Long Island, New York. I'm in London in school. She was on a teaching program. We fell in lust. I wasn't giving up the relationship. And at 20 years old, it seemed like a good idea to immigrate, get married. And I was going to join the United States Air Force because my first wife's brother-in-law was actually in the Air Force. I never did join the Air Force. That's a story for another day. It involved copious amounts of alcohol, which is no longer part of my journey, I'm very pleased to say. But, I bounced around. Look, I always identify kind of myself, Mario, as a blue-collar guy in a white-collar world. I did some research on you. I see that you're partnered with your father. You've got that entrepreneurial influence and that structure in which you've been very blessed to grow up in. My structure was blessed. It was just different. And the best advice my dad gave me was, work hard, do your solid 8 hours, son. Work hard, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. And hopefully you'll have enough money to retire when you're 65. It was like, that was it. That was the game plan.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. So anyway, look, I came to the States. I bounced around for a little while. And I eventually landed up here in New England. And I was very blessed. My first marriage didn't last very long, 3 years. And then I was married. I had a young son. who's now 27 years old, which makes me feel incredibly old. But I landed a job as a firefighter and a paramedic, and I worked in the city of Lynn, Massachusetts. And something inside of me loves the adrenaline. I tested for police departments, I tested for fire departments, and I landed this job with the fire department, and I freaking loved it, brother. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it in any way. If I could drop a few F-bombs right now, I'd be telling it like it is, you know. But just that adrenaline rush of being contrary to what everybody else is doing around you, right?
Right.
Somebody sees a house on fire, everybody runs out. We go running in. You know what I mean? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That opposite reaction. With that came some real solid camaraderie. I learned in that environment that the guy or the girl on the left or the right of me really was the foundation for a successful mission, for want of a better term. You know, if I needed something and they were there, it was good. We're going home that night. But if you needed something inside a structural fire and your partner's, you know, doing the dance of death, running around in circles and exiting the building before the job is done, you know, you got a problem. However, during that period of time, because I'm bringing in my, you know, my working class attitude around finances, I was a financial illiterate. I was a donkey. I found myself in some pretty serious financial challenges because these a-holes kept on giving me these little credit cards called Visa and MasterCard.
For a free t-shirt or something, right?
Free t-shirt, right? Sign on the line. You deserve it. You're a good guy. Why don't you refinance your house at 110% its value, Dave? Okay, buddy, I think I'll do that. That sounds great, right? Real estate always goes up. It never goes down.
Always.
And, you know, I was an absolute victim of the bullshit of 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10, to the point where I was working 120 hours a week, Mario. I would work fire department, construction on my 4 days off, and then nights and weekends, retail security. I was like pot roast police in a freaking grocery store. Jeez. And it was brutal, and I still couldn't make ends meet. And here's the rub, right? That the emotional attachment to that is, you know, why do we go out and trade time for money? Because we want to make money to support our families. Well, how do you support a family? You want to spend time with them. You want to love your children. You want to be a husband to your wife or a husband to your partner, whatever's out there. But, you know, trading time for money took me away from the people I loved. So there was this consistent oxymoron, this push-pull. And long story short, in 2007, my second marriage shit the bed because I was working so many hours. It was done. It was over, brother.
We'll do that.
It was like, how can you be a husband to a wife and a father to a son if you're never home? You know, texts and phone calls don't work. And my house was in pre-foreclosure. My marriage was done. I was in a very dark place. It's the closest I've ever come to picking up a drink in 32 years was around that period of my life, because I was in so much pain. And I remember screaming and shouting at my God, right? And we've all got our own definition of a higher power or God. A guy said to me one time, just all you have to believe is that you're not God, is what he said to me.
Yeah, really.
Right?
Truth,
you know
there's
what I mean?
a lot of truth in that.
Right? Just, you know, ego, ease God out, EGO. He said, just be humble, man, and pray. And I was in a dark place and I'm like praying like crazy. And a commercial came on the radio. I was in my F-250. Commercial comes on the radio and it says, teach me foreclosure, a free seminar coming to your neck of the woods. Have you ever thought about becoming a full-time real estate investor? Sign up now at www. blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what?
And your home is in pre-foreclosure right now.
My home is in pre-foreclosure.
Okay. Got it.
Right?
Keep going.
And I'm like, okay, God is good. And then I reflected back and I started thinking about some of the construction sites I'd been working on. And I remember there were these groups of people that showed up to these construction sites, Mario, that weren't covered in crap, that didn't have crappy clothes and crappy trucks, who didn't have bad attitudes. They were pulling up in nicer cars, walking around these properties, doing this, and then they disappeared.
The jerks in the suits.
Yeah, right. And I remember thinking to myself, what's that asshole doing that I'm not doing? Right.
Right.
And they were investors. They were investors. They were people who had learned something that I had yet to learn. And I went to a seminar. And for the first time in my life, I started hearing things that were contrary to the advice that my father, my teachers, my priests had given me, which was, you don't have to trade time for money for financial freedom. You can trade a multitude of things. You can trade pieces of real estate. You can trade knowledge. You can trade skill sets. You can trade, there's a lot of things other than just punching a time clock. And that's where it began, brother. That's where it began. I was $70,000 in unsecured credit card debt. My house was in pre-foreclosure. Yeah, my house was in pre-foreclosure. My second marriage was ending. And I remember looking at kind of like the landscape around me. And I made a conscious decision that I was going to do something different. And that was to really go after this real estate investing thing. And my very first deal was a wholesale transaction during the crash, 2008, 9, 10. That's when I started, when everybody else was running out, I'm running in. And I made $5,000 selling a contract on a bank-owned property. And I kind of, you know what I did? I took the same philosophies of firefighting into real estate investing. In a burning building, you have to find a way out. Otherwise you die. And I looked at real estate investing and I said, as long as it's legal, honest, and ethical, I'm going to find a way to get it done. Not just one deal, but as many deals as I could.
Love it.
And I made $5,000 on my first deal. And I'm thinking to myself, this can't be legal. It can't be. I didn't own the house.
I just signed a contract and sold the contract. Wait a minute.
This can't be legal. And I began to learn things like, the power of contract, the power of the pen. I then found out that they've been lying to me for years about 401ks and government pensions. And then a guy said to me one day, he said, have you ever thought of a self-directed IRA? I said, what's that? What is that? He said, well, you can roll your money into a self-directed account and you can invest it instead of paying it points and interest and gobbling up your compound interest through compound cost. I'm like, what are you talking about? Compound what? I'm like, and I want all of it. I want it all. And that's where it started, brother. And we progressed from there, just kept going.
That's cool.
How's that for a story?
It's phenomenal. And Dave, I got to pause you really quick on this because I don't think I've ever told anybody this. It's kind of coming up because you're talking about it. The way I learned to invest in real estate, I was doing a short sale on my personal home at the time. And that is how I started a brokerage with a partner while I was doing a short sale on my own personal home and ended up learning how that all worked. And so it's very similar. Like I got into real estate because I was in a tough spot at the time. And it was the biggest blessing ever. Had I not,
what year was that?
It was probably 2007. I'm trying to think 2000. Man, I should know that. Probably around 2006, 2007-ish. No, it would have been 2007, 2008, right around in that range, because I owned a brokerage, a mortgage company with a partner. And we started a real estate brokerage together right around the time that I started working on a short sale on my home. So it was like crash course in how investing works, because somebody actually came to me and said, hey, I'll buy your house from you, even though you owe too much on it. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's a lot of people that I'm talking to that are starting to be upside down. And so it was the biggest blessing. I just didn't realize it. And sounds like it was very similar for you. It was, you're in a tough spot. It pushed you into an opportunity that you were wide-eyed and ready to go. And that took off from there. So very parallel.
So good. Look, brother, it sounds cheesy. And I hate the words sometimes that come out of my mouth, but they're based in experience and reality. There are two choices. One can choose to be a victim or a victor of circumstance. It's what we do during adversity that defines our future. And, I was a victim for many, many years. I was a victim because of ignorance. I refinanced my house, I think it was 3 times in 18 months because a friend was a mortgage. Yeah. A friend was a mortgage broker, and he explained to me that there were these special programs for military, firefighters, and police, and I could get 120% value of my house. Then fast forward, right? And I learned how to read a mortgage, and I start looking at the points that this son of a bitch have been making on my mortgages. And I'm like, oh, we maybe ain't friends no more.
You were a very profitable friend for him.
I
He
was
loved you.
Up to the tune of $20,000. But think about that, right?
Yeah.
He made 20 grand on me. I wasn't his only client. And look, I'm not crapping on the guy, but think about that for a second, Mario. It's so critically important. What you don't know will hurt you.
100%.
And then on top, right? And on top of that, those that seek shall find. You got to look for the answers. So
when you started looking, you started finding the answers and figured out how to make money versus lose money on the whole picture.
Yeah. So look, we started with that wholesale transaction. I then partnered with my ex-partner, Peter Solaris, the guy from the TV show with me. And we became recognized as, a distressed asset investor. And the Attorney General's office tapped us on the shoulder. And excuse me, that was my mic going bang, bang, bang. Most people, when the Attorney General calls, they hide. It was nice for us because she was calling. Her name was Martha Coakley. She had the abandoned housing initiative post-crash. There were so many bank-owned assets that were just pieces of garbage pulling down the valuations in the communities. And we became aligned with the AG's office. So now I'm working with the state of Massachusetts to take these crappy houses, turn them around, get them back into the market. That got us more recognition, more eyes are on us. You get a national TV show, and all of a sudden you're an expert just because you got a TV show. By the way, the two are not always synonymous with each other.
Yeah, true.
And look, and along the way, I learned the value of somebody else going to work, trading their time for money, and paying down my mortgage. And that's called multifamily. That's called cash flow in assets. So I've always been in the cash flow business while I've been flipping houses. I've been a hard money lender. I've been a private lender. And today, all of that knowledge it's been 15 years now, all of that knowledge through that 15-year cycle has put me in a position today where we run a private equity real estate investment company. We have about $320 million worth of real estate in various phases of development throughout Southwest Florida, from Tampa to St. Pete to Cape Coral, Fort Myers. It's funny. I'm going to actually interview you for a second because I'd like your take on this. As I moved into private equity and boutique commercial real estate investing, I found very quickly that it's not about the sticks and bricks anymore. My team takes care of that. I'm just in finance today. Yeah. And that's a whole new discussion altogether with the egos in finance. But
oh, heck yeah.
How do you find raising capital? Because for me, it's kind of interesting. I've got the background on the TV that brings some credibility and stuff. Yeah. But it's a challenge to raise money in this market. It really is.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that what you said, if you want people to follow, or if you want people to bring you money, you almost don't need it. It's kind of like when you go to a bank, the bank will give you the money if you have the net worth, if you have the experience, if you have, the liquidity, all that stuff. They're like, oh, cool, you don't need our money, so we'll give you money. It's kind of the same thing. And what I learned for raising capital, about raising capital, is when I was reaching out to people saying, hey, I've got deals, I want to sit down and talk to you about it. And essentially I wanted to sit down and go through a pitch deck with them. I got very little results from that. And I actually got a lot of pushback. People were like, let me think about it. The evil, I'll think about it. I need to look at my finances. I need to plan some things out. I'll get back to you. I got a lot of that. But what was interesting is that as I started to get some investors going and they started investing with me and there was success, then other people started to want to get into deals. And because I had some investors that had quite a bit of capital, I was actually turning people away. And then what was interesting is that I got more pressure from them to invest with me because I didn't need their money. And so I learned to never ask for money. I don't do it.
Yeah.
And now today, I don't need to raise capital, at least for the deals I'm working, because I've got a handful of very strong LPs that are very scalable. And I turned down investors as recent as last night on a live that I did. People are constantly doing it, but it's almost like getting into it. You have to not need it, which is very difficult. So it's kind of just getting over that hump. And once you get over it, it does become easier. But one last thing on this, and I'm not trying to steal your interview here, but
it's okay. Go for it.
You said you were going to ask me a question, so
I am.
So I would say that anybody looking to raise capital should consider partnering with others who have good track records, and also maybe have a database or relationships with capital partners already, because then that allows you to bridge that gap, get into some successful deals, learn the ropes, and you can connect your track record with theirs, which then attracts more people to it. So
beautiful. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. We're working a new program as we speak. That 330 million that's in various phases of development, because of the compression of cap rates, repositioning, et cetera, B-class properties, the consistent pitch that syndicators are putting out there. We started to look at that compression of cap rate post-COVID, and we're like, I'm not going to put together a 10-year pro forma with 10% year-over-year rent increases to make my numbers work. I can't sleep well. Some people can, who fly around in private jets and all that stuff. That's not me. But what we did was we started to look at the build for rent single family community strategy. We have a very extensive background in Southwest Florida, over 25 years of construction through a couple of market cycles. So when we started looking at that, we put together a program, or we're fleshing out the program now, where we bring in, to your point, I don't need the money. I mean, there's plenty of capital coming towards us, and I never thought the day would come I'd say that. There were times when it was hard to raise capital, but
there's a lot of truth in that. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a couple of groups, SPVs, that are coming in that can write that check for the first, say, 5 million of a position. That allows us to get all of our entitlement work done, our planning done. And then when I go to the bank for that debt piece, for that construction loan, now I'm looking at a 75% loan of cost or a 60% loan of cost, really aggressive. So the capital from the bank, we're finding, is, easier to obtain. The investors that come in early, they pro forma out at some pretty sexy equity multiples, right? Some really nice equity multiples that allow for them to your point, now attach that track record with us. We did a presentation yesterday to a sophisticated accredited investor with a nice database of friends. To your point, right? It's like he gave us $100,000 on one of our properties. He called me the next day. He said, my buddy wants to throw $100,000 in as well. I'm like, that position's gone, man. You took the last 100. And you know what he said to me, Mario? He says to me, I thought you were doing the takeaway close when you told me it was the last 100. I said, brother, there might be some folks out there that do that. I'm not that guy. If I tell you I'm holding a position for you, I'm holding it. If I tell you you got to make a decision by Monday, you got to make a decision by Monday. I'm not here to play games.
Right.
But yeah, I did a presentation to that particular guy yesterday, and he's got maybe a group of, we'll say 5 or 6, accredited investors who wants to put that SPV together. We showed him how to do it. You can work with us on creating the PPM for your group and make sure that everybody's SEC compliant, no games, no BS. And it was funny, man. Within 2 hours, he's texted me, how did I do on the presentation? I'm like, I was presenting to you. He goes, but do you think the opportunity's there for me? I'm like, yeah, man, we'll bring you in. We'll bring you in.
Yeah.
So, it's a very interesting landscape right now. I was just talking to my partners, our executive suite this morning. We had a company meeting, and with the landscape as it is today, the focus is capital preservation. It really is, right?
It
If
is.
inflation is, if they tell us inflation is 7, 8, 9%, we know in reality it's probably 10%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we agree that we're in an inflationary landscape right now of around 7, 8, 9, 10%, capital needs to be working with some velocity to maintain its value, especially over this next 5 years. So, we started to adjust some of our presentation, some of our, our executive summary to focus more on preservation rather than growth.
Right.
And it's amazing how fast it's changed. A year and a half ago, we could find those value add 50, 150, 200 unit complexes, reposition them, create some NOI margin right there, and looks good. But
yeah,
I don't know about you, brother. I can't find them today, so we have to create them.
It's challenging. Yeah. And what's cool about what you're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're developing both single family rental communities as well as apartments, or are you strictly doing single family rental communities?
No,
right now?
both.
Okay.
We're doing a 106 unit, 5 building apartment complex presently. Fingers crossed. They've already jacked the interest rate on us once in negotiations, so we're trying to get through committee this week to avoid another rate increase next week. But
let me point something out, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to point something out. You can build, which is awesome. I have a lot harder time doing that because I mostly invest in manufactured home communities, and to develop a manufactured home community, there's so many restrictions from zoning, and it's kind of like not my backyard. So it's very hard to do. And also the numbers don't quite make sense yet. So I love the fact that you said, hey, I can't buy things that are making sense right now, so let me go create them. I would love to be able to do that. and
here's the thing. What did you just say less than 10 minutes ago? Find ways to partner with people who are doing what you want to do. So 1, you can get yield, but 2, learn what they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's the same process, man. It's exactly the same process.
Yep.
Look, as Florida's absorption rate is so out of whack, it's just ridiculous. The population continues to grow. The retirees continue to flood into the great state of Florida. DeSantis continues to be as friendly to business as he possibly can. We're in such a friendly business environment down there that we can, in good confidence, right, in good conscience and confidence, put out pro formas that can show anywhere between a 2x to a 6x multiple over a 5-year stabilization plan.
Agreed.
Think about that for a second. Where else can we look at a risk exposure with a potential upside than that? I don't play the stock market. I'm not a crypto kid. It's not my wheelhouse. I know sticks and bricks. So it's an exciting time to build yield. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's pretty much Florida, Texas. I mean, there's very few. Tennessee's doing pretty well, but otherwise there's not too many. Yeah, some of the Carolinas. There's not too many places that you can expect serious population growth, job growth, and higher demand going into a potentially ugly economy down the road. You kind of want to be you want to be in the places where everybody's running to, and it's a real perfect storm for Florida right now. So I would agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got to ask you something.
Go ahead.
And I'm not trying to go backwards, but you kind of skimmed over the TV show thing, right? So, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but did somebody just call you one day and go, hey dude, do you want to be on TV? Or like, how did that happen? And you have people running up to you a lot, or was it like, how did that happen? And again, I don't want to take the whole discussion on that, but I think people would be interested, including me, in how that worked.
Yeah. Well, it's my dynamic good looks. As soon as somebody saw how handsome I were.
I knew it.
No, I told you I went to a seminar, right? So I go to a seminar, I spend money that I didn't have so I could learn, or at least have some accountability in my life. And if you've ever been to a seminar and invested in yourself, you very quickly find out that there's thousands of seminars. There's gurus are coming out of the woodwork, right? And there was one particular guy, he was selling websites, and he was a firefighter out in California, and he sold real estate investing websites. And he was presenting an hour-and-a-half presentation, and he was selling his bullshit in a box for $1,000, I call it. And he was trying to be funny in his presentation. And to be quite frank with you, Mario, he sucked. He wasn't funny. And I had done a little stand-up comedy back in London in a few pubs and clubs. You know, I had a little entertainer in me. And this guy's up there. I buy his websites, and I said to him afterwards, I said, "Hey man, I'm a firefighter. You're a firefighter, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "Oh, nice to meet you." I go, "I got to tell you, brother, your comedy sucks." He's like, "What?" I said, "Your comedy sucks." Now the big guru, right? Leverage, hierarchy. I brought him down to my level. Eye to eye. I said, "I used to do stand-up comedy." And he says to me, "Okay, you're my comedy coach." He says, "Meet me in Florida. I got a 3-day training down there. You're going to coach me on comedy for 3 days." He said, "I'll pay you $1,500 and I'll cover all your expenses."
Wow.
I'm like, this guy's
For
full of shit, right? That's what I'm thinking. Because for me, I would work an overtime in the firehouse and only take home $200. This guy's going to give me $1,500 in 3 days. So anyway, I got on the other side of the equation. I got into the education space. And I found very quickly that people resonated with me and would invest in the products and services I had. I was always representing other guys. But once you're in that infotainer, info marketing world, like I was going to events before Gary V was Gary V. Like He'd be hanging out with the rest of us, and Russell Brunson, and, you know, like all these guys. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. Russell Brunson sent out an email blast list to his inner circle, and he said, this company in New York's looking for house flippers. And he said, "Dave, you're a funny bastard." He said, "You should turn in an application."
Bastard.
And that's what I did. It was an online fill out an application. And what I did was I loaded it with profanity, loaded my application with profanity, because I'd learned from these marketers that you got to separate yourself from the pack. What was I going to do? "Yeah, my name's David. I do 5 flips a year. My team is Peter, Tony, Terry, and Timon." Boring shit. So name me your company. I put in there, "Go F Yourself LLC." Right? That was the name of my company. And then I just loaded it with shit. And right at the end of it, it said, "Is there anything else you want to add?" And I wrote in the commentary on this online application, "Don't call me, asshole. Get on a plane, train, or an automobile. Come from New York to Boston. I'll show you how it's done. When everybody else goes running out, we go running in. Don't effing call me." And I sent it. The phone rang within 15 minutes, 212 area code. I'm like, "It's New York." So I pick up the phone, Mario, I go, "Hey, asshole, I thought I told you not to call me." Click, and I hung up the phone. And I'm going, "Please call back."
That's taking it to the next level. I love that.
He called back. The kid was laughing his ass off. He said, "You're either a lunatic or a genius." I said, "What's the difference? Let's start filming." That's how we got a show, man. That's how we got the show.
That is crazy, man. It takes some balls to hang up on the person after when you know it's them calling you for an opportunity. That takes serious guts to do. That's impressive.
What have I got to lose at that moment in time? I got nothing to lose. I got everything to win. You know what I mean? It's like, think about it for a second. In everything that we do, if we spend so much time weighing up, oh my God, oh no, right? We won't do anything. It's deer in the headlights bullshit. I'd rather make mistakes and learn how to monetize them than not even get in the game. So anyway, that's how it started. We did 4 episodes. We were the highest ratings they ever got on a Saturday morning for that little slot of time. And then we ended up doing 29 episodes, or maybe 4 seasons or something.
Jeez.
Next thing you know, I'm on the Today Show hanging out with Kathy Lee and Hoda. You know what I mean?
That is cool. That is so cool. Yeah. I got to pull a little nugget out of what you just said. And you said that you'd rather make the mistake while trying to learn something and do it, and then while you're figuring out how to monetize. I always tell people, look, you can go and study up, you can do all this research, you can, analysis paralysis, right? You can learn everything there is, but you're never really going to learn it until you start looking at real deals and making offers and making mistakes. And when you do that, then you're able to actually figure out how the real game works. Textbook is great. You should study up, you should educate yourself. But most importantly, you've got to jump in and start doing as early on as you possibly can, because bumping your head is how you actually learn. So
that's good.
That's definitely a gutsy example of doing that. But I love it,
sure.
man.
For sure.
So,
look, man, people love to go to YouTube University, right?
Why do I have to invest in myself? I can go online and get the answers.
Here's the deal. Ready? This is how I kind of phrase this. Education is free. Implementation costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, you either invest them with a guy like Mario or a guy like me or somebody who's actually doing the business, not just talking about it, but doing it. You invest with them, so you buy their mistakes, or go out and make your own mistakes.
That's right.
There's no skin off my nose, but what's the common denominator? Mistakes.
That's right.
Right? It's just a choice.
And one thing that's interesting too, Dave, is that you brought something up pre-interview that was interesting. You help entrepreneurs, you help investors. Basically, you help high-performing entrepreneurs earn returns and also avoid a lot of mistakes too. And that's done through your syndications, right? Because you've got somebody who's got capital, but they don't want to go learn how to develop these apartment buildings or these communities. They can leverage your experience and get those returns. Anyways, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, it's here's the one thing that I've done. I think I said this either before the interview or during this podcast. I bring a blue collar attitude to a white collar world, right? Just because you can razzle dazzle a spreadsheet, don't ask me to touch a spreadsheet. I can't even add up a column on a spreadsheet, Mario. I can't. And I have no intention of learning it, right? My partner's a freaking genius. He can do it with his eyes closed, right? He's almost a quant. He came from Fidelity, young guy, 27. But what is important is knowledge, okay? An educated investor is a better investor. Whether they want to be an active investor or a passive investor, you got to understand what the hell is going on. Otherwise, somebody can rip you off or somebody can make you a lot of money or both, right? So we insist that our investors at least understand what it is that we're doing, right? Understand what a cap rate is. If I ask the average Joe on the street, what's the capitalization rate in 01902, they'll go, oh, I don't know, right? So you got to understand the fundamentals of underwriting. Don't look at an IRR and get all excited because it's 40% when you don't understand what an IRR is, right? Am I making 40% of my money? No, stupid. That's not what you're doing. All right. How about we educate you? How about we walk you through what it means? It's the value of money working over time. Oh, okay. Cash on cash returns. Do you understand what a repositioning is? Do you understand that we live or die by the NOI? If you don't know what that phrase means, don't give me $1. I don't want your money. You're going to be crying and complaining. So we spend as much time as we can bringing investors up the gradient. As we do that, they'll either do one or two things. They'll realize I don't have the time to go out and market and analyze. I don't have Freedom Venture Investments, our company's 60 years combined experience. I'm not going to get that. I'm going to be dead before that happens. Or they're tenacious and they're an entrepreneur at their core and they can put a good team together and then we'll help them. Do you want some help with your private placement memorandums? Do you want some help with your underwriting? What can we do to make you be more proficient in the marketplace? I told you I don't drink, right? 32 years without a drink, a drug, a mood, a mind-altering substance. But I was only able to do that because I had something of value, which was sobriety, and I gave it away to somebody else. And I was there to help somebody else when their hand was out. Give them a hand up. Don't give them a hand out. Give them a hand up. And it's the same thing in business for me. If I've got a resource, if I've got a connection, if I've got something that's valuable that you need, let's talk. Let me see what I can do to make you or help you be more proficient in your journey. So that's kind of how we do it. Yeah.
I didn't know it was possible to live in Boston and not drink.
There's a few of us, one or two.
Yeah, probably not many. it's funny because I haven't drank in 20 years this year. I quit drinking before I could legally drink. And I don't normally talk about that. And I think it, without getting too into that whole, discussion or make it sound like I'm condemning people who drink, because I don't really care what people do,
Right.
but
I don't either.
It's really a personal decision that I've made, my wife made, but it's, it really brings a lot of clarity and confidence when you're constantly sober and know exactly what you're doing, exactly where you've been, what you've done. And I think it also brings a lot of confidence from other people because they know you're not going to make bad decisions and blame it on something else that you had no control over. So I respect that a lot. And I think it's cool that you talk about that and you're making it okay that people know you don't have to drink to even be in business settings. I mean, for 20 years I haven't, and it's always been fine, and people don't care, And so I think
look, man, I'm the designated driver.
I get to party. I get to drive you home too.
That's right. It's funny. I used to do a lot of business in Vegas. Once we had the TV show, we'd do a lot of speaking engagements in Vegas, and they used to call me the ghost because all these idiots would go out with their Vegas head on, right? All the ladies dress up and look way too, I'm just going to say it, way too hookerish, right?
Yeah.
And all the guys wear tight shirts that they'd never wear in their own neighborhoods. And they walk around these casinos like they're in Disneyland for grownups, and they're drinking and gambling. And I'd look at it and I go, first of all, they all look like amateurs to me. Like, if you're drinking, drink. Don't mess around with it.
You're from Boston, of course.
That's right, right? I'm a London kid living in Boston now. I got the DNA and the genes, but I'd start to see the stupidity happen, and I'd just fade away gently into the background. Go up into the big old fancy suite in the Bellagio that we were in, and I'd watch Netflix, and I'd be all tucked up in bed by 9 o'clock at night. But I'd be fresh as a daisy the next morning while everybody else is feeling like crap. So
they're struggling to get there the next day, and you're crisp, and that's and ultimately performance is important. Performance really matters, and
for sure.
I think for me, I think you can tell when people make, not even just drinking, but make bad decisions, and it affects their performance. And I've seen that happen to people where their lifestyle choices have really pushed them over the edge to where now their performance sucks and it affects every area of their life. And so very cool.
Look, listen, one second, because it's important. You just said a really important word, and it's performance, right? So I think it's always important to highlight how that word performance is everything. Sticks and bricks, construction, dirt, repositioning, tenants, et cetera, that's just a business. The business has to be executed by the performance of the people that are running that business, right?
Right.
And, it's that team adage. There's no I in team, right? The team is the critical piece that we focus on at Freedom Venture is, take a look at the principles of the company. Do you gel with their philosophies, their mission statements? Do they have the skill sets? And more importantly, can they work together? If I'm writing a check for $5 million, I want to make sure that Mario and his dad are doing really good, right? I want to know that family unit, that business unit is A-okay. And for us, I'll just share this, and then we'll move in any direction you want. But I shared I did 16 years as a firefighter and a paramedic, right? And that militaristic environment served me very well for business. And then I meet my partner, Walter Novicki, a couple of years older than me. He's ex-Special Forces. He retired out of the services as Major Walter Novicki. He ran an elite group of guys that you only ever whispered about and never ever wanted to see. You never would see them anyway. You wouldn't know they were coming, right? He's the guy that got dropped into certain conflicts throughout the world and took care of business. So performance, execution of a business plan, when everything turns to crap around you in real estate, because it will,
right?
Are you able to breathe and execute the plan? And Walter and I do that quite often. We look at each other and wink because we see people around us spinning out, we look at each other and go, this ain't an emergency. I know what a real emergency is.
I know what it's like to be in a firefighter in a gun battle, right?
Right. It's like, this ain't an emergency. Let's just execute the plan. So that word performance is very important.
I think too, experience is something that you just can't make up, you can't skip over. And so as you build your business, as you grow your portfolio, as you've been through more and more business fires, you kind of you should be getting more and more of a cool about those things and recognize that, hey, this probably isn't going to take me down. So I just need to step back, think about it, and then reorganize and think outside the box. And I think being a firefighter, being, military, where you had to get into conflict situations, I think that would be just an extremely strong skill to have, that you'd be able to bring from those areas into business, which can get pretty dicey sometimes.
No, absolutely. 100%.
So what, for someone who's looking to get, I got two kind of angles to play on this. What, for the person who's looking to get into, maybe they're either investing in single family homes and they want to take it to the next level, they want to get into bigger deals, they want to do commercial real estate, or somebody who's just kind of coming from no real estate background and wanting to get into real estate, what's kind of some advice that you would give somebody that's, looking at the market, they're going, crap, what is this bad timing? What do I need to know? Like, what would you tell somebody? I know it's a very wide open question, but what's kind of the one thing that you'd tell somebody looking to either scale up or get into real estate investing in general right now?
Yeah, great question, man. It's such a dynamic environment right now. There's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of risk in the marketplace, right? And when I say risk, I mean lack of education, knowledge, understanding, competencies, right? So let's go with two plays. Let's say I'm a passive investor. I'm a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner. I've got some capital on hand. Maybe it's some of that free money that Biden sent us, and we want it to go to work before we have to potentially start paying it back. That passive investor, it's research, first of all. If you punch in syndication in Google, there'll be pages and pages and pages. Some are beautiful performers. Some are, they just got into business last week. A lot of them don't know what the hell they're doing. They're peddling shit. And, how do you determine that yourself? You ask a lot of questions. Do your due diligence. If you don't have the time to be a proficient active investor yourself, allocate a serious amount of time to get to know the business. Listen to this podcast and podcasts like it. Get on the phone and talk to the operators if you can. Work a referral process. If you're a doctor, lawyer, business owner, and you're successful, you probably only got to be successful because you're part of a network environment yourself. So talk to your peer group and ask them if they have any experience. A friend of mine just bought me a dentist last week who cut me a check for $125,000 after a quick 10-minute call, right? But the thing is the experience with my friend, went to the dentist said, oh, okay, knows him. He meets me, we talk, shoot the breeze, blah, blah, blah. The check comes in, it's all good. He's going to get a nice return portfolio. So ask questions, do your due diligence, listen to podcasts. Yeah, go ahead.
So you didn't hang up on that guy?
No, not that
Don't
guy.
Call me. Show up at my house, brother.
Yeah, I don't need your money, biatch. Click. Yeah. No, I didn't. Because he came. You know what? That's kind of interesting. You throw it out there like a gag, but the truth of the matter is that relationship, right? Relationships are the new currency.
Totally.
They really are. That's the new value currency in the market, especially since COVID. So ask questions, due diligence, podcast, research. Community, find like-minded, join a freaking Facebook group. I don't care. Get in there and start learning some stuff. Don't go to CBRE. Don't go to these BlackRock. They're not going to talk to you. You're not going to find what you need there. Get grassroots with it. Now, if you want to be the active investor, it's the same advice. Find somebody or a few people who are doing what you want to do. Then find out what you have as an individual is a value add to those people. Guess what? It ain't money most of the time. Your money is not that valuable anymore. It's probably only worth a nickel right now, if that, right? So your money isn't your value. What is your value? Is it your connections, your relationships, your skill sets? If you're one of those millennials listening to this and you're a whiz with computers and analysis and underwriting and spreadsheets and all that, maybe that's your value add that you can bring. Hey, let me do XYZ for you while I learn what you're doing. If you have a coaching program, if you have a mentorship, if you have, you know, a ground up fundamental 101 commercial real estate investing course, take the freaking course, drop the $3,500 to $5,000, join a mastermind if you can, right? Start to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. And by the law of osmosis, you'll begin to get yourself up the gradient. I look at where I am today. I've probably invested north of, I don't know, maybe $300,000-$400,000 in myself over 15 years to be parts of masterminds and groups and things of that nature. I'm talking to a real cool guy right now, John Azar of 15 Peak Capital. He's out of the Carolinas. And John and I looked at the landscape and we were so sick and tired of like mediocre masterminds. You know, we're working together right now, a couple of war horses in the business to bring in, you know, 25 guys or girls, no more. Yeah. Mastermind. Like I want to level up my own game all the time. Otherwise it becomes redundant and I don't want to keep on doing the same thing over and over. So be aggressive, seek the education, know that education doesn't make you wealthy. Implementation is what does. Whether your implementation is investing in somebody else's deal or fund structure, or whether it's investing in somebody else's education, figure out how to bring value. If it's not money, what skill sets do you have? And, you know, plan it out, goal set it, and then execute on the plan.
That's awesome. I always tell people when you're looking to either get into to investing or you're looking for partners, you should really be looking for people who have opposite skill sets as you. So if you're good at the analytics and somebody else is really good at communicating, meaning good at raising money or whatever, you want to find people with opposite skill sets and partner up with them. And that's exactly what you just said. If you want to get active, go find somebody else who's already got experience and is doing it, but needs what you have, meaning opposite complementary skill sets, team up with them. And now you're adding value to the deal and you're not stepping on each other's toes and trying to like, you know, do the same thing. It won't make a successful partnership that way. So I think what you said right there is 100% true. Now let's change that up just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. I've got a lot of really, for lack of a better term, successful investors and entrepreneurs that listen to this. And being that you've had, you know, I mean, what you're talking about portfolio size, that's huge. I mean, that's a really large portfolio. And so for the people who are already in the business, actively doing deals, actively syndicating, what's kind of one thing that has helped you get to where you're at right now that maybe everybody hasn't heard before from a higher level? I mean, I know I'm in several masterminds as well. And there's some nuggets that I get from those where I walk out and go, man, I think so small. I need, you know, like you walk out, you get these big picture thoughts. Anything come to mind that maybe somebody could take and scale up even bigger?
Yeah, there is. And this came, I say, from the mouths of babes. And if he heard me say that, he'd probably get a little pissed. But my business partner, I got a couple of partners, 3 partners are equal partners in our company. Myself, Walter, who I just mentioned, and my third partner, Eric Wilson. Eric is 27 years old. He's the same age as my oldest son from my second marriage. So him and I are very close, but he is, his intelligence is off the freaking charts, right? He was at Fidelity. He was one of 20 people hired nationwide in almost like a think tank quant type environment. Was at Fidelity, and they were writing algorithms to predict market cycles, right? Wow. So that's how smart he is. Now, why did I bring that up? Because his perspective on business and life is obviously very, very different to mine. So when you say, you know, our portfolio size is large, it ain't. It's not. It's not. We're a grain of sand on the beach of capital markets right now.
Right.
So we are only as restricted as we allow ourselves to be. Now, that being said, where I am at right now, Walter, acquisitions, development, construction in Florida, looked me right in the eyes on the Zoom call yesterday, and he went, "Hey, capacity, time to infill, support, expansion," right? So I am, your question is, what advice could I give? My advice is this, and it's not going to be pretty, but it's truthful. Make a mess and learn how to monetize it. I want my partners screaming at me because I got too much money coming in, or I got too many deals in the pipeline, or we're all maxed out to capacity. Because if you don't stress your environment will never grow, right? So it's always a case of stressing it. I'm a pusher. I went to lunch with a guy who runs he's a VC, he's a venture capitalist firm, locally here in Boston. Super dude, no airs and graces. Went to lunch with him, came out of lunch, and he says to me, I love you. He said, "I love what you guys are doing. What can you do with 50 million? That's what he said to me. I said, "If you create an SPV, I'll create a fund structure. We'll put that 50 million to work. And I have a lot of confidence that I could turn that 50 million into 250, 300 million in the next 5 years."
Right.
Now, I then go back to my partners and they're like, "What did you say? 50 million? Why didn't you just take 10? I said, "Because now if I got 50, guess what we're going to do? We're going to put it to work." Right. So that's it. What do they call BHAG? Big, hairy, audacious goals, right? Audacious goals. That's my DNA.
I love that.
Can it come back and bite you in the ass? Yeah, but what have you got to lose, man?
So make a big old mess, but it'll force you to grow. Yeah, make a big mess, and I love it.
Yeah, that's it.
That is one area that I definitely have to improve on, because I've always grown incrementally, where I'll push, then I'm like, all right, cool, I've made a mess. Now I need to focus on getting that mess under control so we can scale again. And the problem with that is you kind of do this. You plateau, you go up, you plateau, you go up, and it takes a lot longer to do that. And so I have seen other people who pretty much they've just made a huge mess. Like they've bought so much. They're like, okay, we bought so much, we don't even know how to manage all this, but we've bought all this, so now we've got the assets, and then they grow. Then they from there they go and build the team around it, and then they go clean up their mess. And so I totally respect that, and I think it's something that a lot of people who are maybe a little bit more risk. I don't want to say, because I know I can tell you're very risk adverse, but for people who are risk adverse to the point where they don't want to create so much of a mess that they're afraid that it's going to take them down, they need to at least push the envelope a little bit to where they get out of their comfort zone, I think is the best way to put that. And I love how you explain that. Yeah, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to push it to the point where everybody's looking at you like, are you crazy? How are we going to deploy that capital? We got money right now we got to put out. And you just committed to the next.
Think about this for a second, right? You kind of like open that door to risk aversion. Risk for me is defined by the things that I cannot control. Okay. That's the only risk that I worry about, is the stuff I can't control. If I raise more money than I can deploy, I can control that. I go and I expand my acquisitions team. I change out some of my targeting. Maybe I bring in some self-storage. Maybe I have a line in my PPM that allows me to do joint venture. Maybe I can open up my hard money lending business again and deploy, 5 million of that capital off into that fund structure over there. Like, I create the diversity for that amount of capital coming in. I mean, that was one call. I got a marketing team that wants to bring, the flipping Boston face back into the national spotlight. And they're looking at me going, well, we think we could spend $400,000 a month on Facebook and social media ads and TV and radio. If we put that much money behind you, how much How much can we make together because we bring in investors from that ad spend? I then go back to my guys and I go, well, there's the VC money over there for 50 mil, but this might be about 250 mil. There might be a $500 million coming in over here, and we got to put that money to work at a pro forma rate of return, right? How you doing?
Love it. Love it. And they're going, all right, man, we got to figure this out. But
they're asking, did Dave pick up a drink? No,
yeah, really.
Pick up a drink.
And for the listeners out there, guys, pay attention to the numbers that we're talking, the level that we're talking at right now. I mean, you need to get around people who are growing and scaling businesses and don't have limits on their mind. And I think, Dave, one thing that I really like about you is you're definitely a huge thinker. Also, you're funny as hell, man. There's not too many business guys that you could sit there and with a big old grin.
Dry, doesn't it?
Because they're funny. Right? So I believe the whole stand-up comedy thing, and I think people respect genuine personalities and people who are themselves. And when people, like, I can tell that your personality is you, because you just don't care.
No, I don't give a shit. You're right.
And I can respect that. And I think other people can too. And and I think that's something that we as business people, investors should take a look at and maybe ask ourselves, are we being ourselves, or are we being more of this, in the box mold of what we think entrepreneurs should be, what business owners should be? I mean, how many people are, and I am guilty of that too. Like, I think there's ways that I could become more and more myself and more relaxed in business settings. But, a lot of people would say, hey, wearing a baseball cap and a t-shirt isn't very professional to a business meeting, but I would, I don't really care. And so in general, I think that we can learn from that and ask ourselves, are we being the genuine self, our genuine self? Are we being who we really are? Because I think when we have a lot more fun, we're a lot more confident, and people are attracted to that more than that in the box business, vibe that people give off.
100%, brother. I got a little phrase that I try very hard to live by, and I do it 90%, 95% of the time. And it's real simple. Other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
Yeah.
How freeing is that? Think about that for a second. Let that one sink in. Other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
I love that.
I don't have to spend my life thinking about me, myself, and I. Because as soon as I'm free of that thought process, and I'm not perfect, trust me, brother.
Sure.
I fail miserably every day. But if I can free myself from self, it allows me to listen to my potential investors. It allows me to listen to my partners, listen to my builders, listen to whoever it is that I need to listen to, because the power to listen then allows me to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all we do. We solve other people's problems. I got $20 million in the bank and it's dying because of inflation.
Yeah.
I can solve that problem for you. Let me show you how, right? And
Love
then
it.
just be real, man. Stand in your own skin. Stand in your own skin. That's kind of the way I look at it.
That's a powerful message to end us off here. So Dave, I appreciate you getting on. I am super excited. And I appreciate Josh for making the introduction. Josh Wilson, who actually has Deal Scout podcast, he made the introduction. He's
he did. He's a monster. What a great guy.
Super good dude. Yeah, super good dude. And I'm so thankful that you got on here. I got a ton out of this. I'm sure the listeners did too. And I'm looking forward to doing some deals with you and doing business with you. I think there's ways we can add value to each other. And I love the fact that you're investing in my backyard, which I can't tell you how many homes I bought in Cape Coral and, Lehigh Acres and Fort Myers and over the years, and so that you're playing in my sandbox, which is awesome. So hopefully next time you come down, we grab lunch and do some deals together. But sure. Hey, Dave, how can people get in contact with you so they can do deals with you or learn from you, or how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm old school. You can actually pick up a phone, 781-922-4418. It's a rarity.
I'm not laughing because you said to call you and you're old school. I'm laughing because every time you talk about the phone, I keep thinking about how you hung up on that dude.
I won't.
Careful. He will tell you to show up at his house after the first call, or he'll start hanging up on you too.
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Hit that number one more time, Dave.
781-922-4418. Freedomventure.com. Freedomventure.com. That's our front door. There's education there. There's some deal flow there. I think there's a white paper that you can download there that will talk about passive investing, diversity in a portfolio. It's a high level white paper. It was written by our financial team. So I hope your eyes don't bleed when you read it, but it's got great information in there. Look, man, if those that seek shall find, you know my name, you know where I am, you know the name of my company. And let's see how we can bring you value. That's really what it's all about. So I'm out there, brother. You can find me.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks again, Dave, for being on. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening. I hope you got out of this as much as I did. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review so we can reach more people. Jump over to mariodattilo.net and find out what else I got going on. Be sure to connect with me on all the socials, and I'll see you on next week's show.